Very good morning, afternoon, or evening to you all who are watching this one-to-one recording of my catch up with the Chief Constable. Much of the questions that I'll be asked have been generated out of the chairing of the Performance and Governance Board, and also emails and correspondence that I've had with members of the public. So I want to just thank all those who have sent questions in for me to ask the chief. And I'll just introduce myself. My name is Festus Akinbusoye, and I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for Bedfordshire. Chief, would like to introduce yourself for those who do not know you yet.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Trevor Rodenhurst. I'm the Chief Constable of Bedfordshire.
Okay. Um, just so you know, this one-to-one is an additional meeting for the public to be able to have some sighting of my engagement with the chief. It is additional to other regular catch-ups that we have, and the chief and I, we've been in touch over the weekend with the protest that's been happening, for example, which we're going to touch on in a second. And also we have other accountability and engagement opportunities between myself and the chief constable. So the first thing I wanted to ask, Chief, is that obviously over the weekend there were a number of road closures in Bedford, and I think there were protests in Houghton Regis as well. I'm just interested to know what the force's position is on how it is to police and manage the protests, and I'm quite keen to know what level of engagement the force is having, specifically with both our Jewish and Muslim communities around this very obviously political and quite charged issue of the conflict that's going on in Israel and Palestine, in Gaza specifically at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Festus, my answers, I've spoken many times publicly on this locally. Without doubt, there are two sections of our communities who, since the 7th of October, understandably feel less safe than they did before that date. And the job of Bedfordshire Police is to provide reassurance to that, to both of those communities, which we've been doing. And we've got a really good track record in this county of working closely with our communities and focusing on the issues that unite us and not divide us, and particularly, countering any voices that would seek to divide us. Our approach, firstly, in terms of the reassurance, there's a number of things we're doing. There have been key conversations with individuals well placed in the community to echo those conversations. There is planned engagement this week. I personally am visiting two of our mosques tomorrow, and I'll be doing that with the chief exec from the local authority in Luton. The other colleagues of mine are planning other visits, and this doesn't favour one community over another. Clearly, we have a significant number of mosques and other establishments which are good places for this engagement to take place, but equally we have synagogue, we have leaders of the Jewish faith, and they're being reached out to again by senior leaders in the organisation, which includes the offer to meet with myself if they feel it's necessary. But I am confident that engagement has been ongoing. We're one of the only forces that has a community cohesion team whose job it is to continually engage with our communities and highlight anywhere where we need to do specific engagement. In terms of, the approach to protest, is completely understandable given the profile of our communities that is a strong desire to protest, and very much the nature of protests we have seen within Bedfordshire has been members of our community protesting because they want to see peace in Gaza, and our response to policing those protests has been a low-key neighbourhood policing style approach, and in general we've had good engagement with those organising, so this hasn't been a surprise to us, but I'm pleased to say no, we've made no arrests, we haven't come close to that. And
have there been any complaints or reports about anti-Semitic posters or slogans or Islamophobic slogans and reports or any kind of racist? Are you aware of any hate crime reports?
Yeah, so and I think I've answered this before. We did see an uptick in hate crime, both of a Islamophobic and anti-Semitic nature since the 7th of October. We've had a robust response to that. We've got a dedicated SIO who reviews those. So
Can
we
you just say what an SIO is, Chief?
senior investigating officer, so a detective qualified to look at them evidentially and categorize them. But also, my assumption is that this recording will be published, Commissioner. So I'll just take the opportunity to say any crimes of that nature or instance of that nature, we need to get reported to us, because then we can respond to it appropriately. So I keep encouraging that to happen. We want to know about such things because it's not something we tolerate here in Bedfordshire. But your other question was, have we had any complaints about the way we have been policing protests? Not to my knowledge. Doesn't mean I've got visibility of every complaint, but nothing of significance. And actually, I've got a letter of thanks from Luton Borough Council in the way we approached the recent one. So
I guess for me, I'm obviously, you and I, we've had several conversations about this, and we're both very alive to the national, broader conversation being held in different environments about how the protests are being managed and policed. And my view is I want to just make sure that the law is enforced by the force. And that includes facilitating peaceful and lawful protest, which is a very fundamental part of a democratic society. I think the police are seen as pillars of that in holding that up. And I do support the force facilitating peaceful and lawful protests in the same way that I will support actions being taken to tackle any kind of Islamophobic or anti-Semitic actions being taken by any particular individuals with the same level of robustness. So I'm very pleased by the sensible approach being taken in managing this issue. But did you say, unless I'm mistaken, that there has been engagement with the Jewish community? I know you say you're going to the mosques this week. Have there been others with the Jewish community specifically that you're aware of?
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
just, and they're going to
Okay.
continue to be. And
Good.
that offer is to reach out. And you and I were recently at an event with the Jewish community.
Yes. Yes.
So you can see that is happening. But the other thing I would say is, we will apply the law here, but we police with our communities. We do it in a way that is engaging, explaining.
Yep.
We provide our own independent interpretation of the law.
This is why of course, this is no direction that I'm giving to you, Chief, because that's not my job to give operational direction. It's just a suggestion. As and when you deem it appropriate, I think you should seriously consider explaining to the public through the force comms about how it polices public protests and the consideration that are taken to ensure the safety of everyone, and balancing this in terms of civil liberties and enforcing the law. I think having something from the force comms proactively will be a very good way. But that's just my that's my suggestion to you. But also, I'm quite interested, before we go to the next question, Chief, how does this actually underscore your own philosophy and style of leadership? And how you see policing in the interest of all communities. How does that reflect your own personal philosophy and leadership?
So, my personal view is policing needs to, build on the bedrocks of community policing. We need to be engaging with our communities at all times, not just when there's difficulties, and building trust. And then when you do that, when there is challenging times, you can come together in a way that it kicks on from that trust that's already been built. But it's important that we have our style, our levels of engagement in the way we do things here, and resist any kind of attempt to kind of change that posture, because it served us well, and we need to do things with our communities and not to our communities.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is obviously in line with the data that I've seen from the performance and governance board meeting from last week. I've just got a couple of questions on the back of those. What is the force doing to increase the level of attendance at crimes reported? Now, I know the chair of the panel, as in the past, asked what the force is going to do in relation to a former Home Secretary's expectation that all crimes are attended by police officers. And my response has been there's an operational thing for Chief Constable to decide, and there's a risk assessment policy in place to determine what gets attended to. Are you satisfied, Chief, that the force your officers are attending the right level of crimes reported, or do you think more could be attended, and what can be done to improve that?
Well, we are attending more than we historically have done, and we will be attending more as we go forward. There's a few key things there, Commissioner, which are the building blocks of that. So, firstly, we've been investing in the people within our organisation, developing their skills, developing leadership at every level. And we've gone through a significant recruitment drive over the last 3 years. So we've got an upskilling and therefore an increasing footprint of deployable asset, or in other words, officers who've become sort of fully fledged and independent to go out and do what we've recruited them to do. So there's an increase in deployable asset as a start. Secondly, we've discussed in this forum before that we've now started to look really closely at what the police should be doing and shouldn't be doing. And we've worked really closely with partners in order to ensure that we are not deployed to things that we are not best placed to deal with. And right care, right person is the terminology that I've explained in this forum before, but that has meant that we are going to less concerns for welfare where there is no crime, no immediate threat to anyone's life. That has meant that that means if you're not going to things that you shouldn't be doing because there's no crime, there's no need for the police, that it is meant that we've got more available resources to go to what we should be going to. And other things that we have done here are not, they are related to this. So where we increase productivity of our,
technology and stuff,
technology, this is all marginal gains aimed at providing the public a better service.
And do we have any data of improvement in attendance as a result of these really welcomed innovations that you've brought in, as well as the right care, right person being freeing up more time, RVR as well, the rapid video response as well? Do we have any evidence of an increase in attendance at crimes reported?
Yeah. So that's pretty much where I'm coming to.
Okay.
Before I answer that, I don't want to miss out is, for me, it all starts in the control room at the first point where the public, in the main, yes, some public will approach us on the streets, but many contact us either by phone or online. And if that response is swift, then you're able to, better kind of, deploy resources where maybe a crime's happening or, a more earlier chance of intervention. And as a result of that, we can see the control room performance now is significantly higher than, for example, this time last year. And in fact, in February, we, completely attained our desired service level, in terms of the speediness with which we responded and then to the public in the control room. If you get that right, that gives you a better chance.
Yeah.
So that bit is in a good place. And now, and rightly, as you allude to, we're focusing on the speed at which we then attend, and that is improving. So I think, so far we're looking at about 57% of the things we would want to, being answered within the time we would want. I want that to increase. I anticipate it will increase because many of the things you and I just, the changes we've just talked about are fairly recent.
Yes.
Therefore, I expect this to be an improving position, and indeed it's an area we're really focused on. So we're focused on where something is graded as immediate, getting there quicker, and indeed when you're not distracted with resources at things that arguably they shouldn't be at, that means that when crimes are reported, we've got more available to resource to attend more things, where in the past, through risk, threat and harm decisions, we might have had to go to some things and chosen not to go to others. So we will be going to more, and you're already starting to see that with things like our current response to shoplifting, things that in the past it was more challenging for the force to respond in the way we want to.
So I think we're going to touch on the Belleville, which is the shoplifting and acquisitive crime action plan later on. So what I'll also ask you to do, please, is you probably don't have that data now. That's fine. If you can get that for me later on. So the force is now attending by 56%. It'll be interesting to see what this was like a year ago and the year before that. Obviously, then hopefully we've seen an increase in trajectory in line with the increasing availability of officers coming out of the student hub as well as the innovation that's coming in. And I want to just congratulate you and the force for the fantastic improvement in court handling times in the force control room, because obviously, a lot of resources was put into the control room about a couple of months ago to about a year. And it's just fantastic to see the outcomes being achieved now. So very well done to you. And is it Graham? Who's now the Graham Bates, who's the chief? Yes.
A good job.
Really, really good job. And I went into the FCR last week, and the atmosphere was just so different to 2 years ago. And so very, very well done with that. So I look forward to getting the data about the amount of jobs attended vis-a-vis the 56% now compared to a year or 2 years ago. Okay.
I'll give you the precise figures, but it's a noticeable step up.
Good. That is good. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask for what target you would like to aim for. I won't do that. But at least, we're both ambitious for that number to go up. But I think it'll be really good to see how that number's evolved over the next couple of months. The next question that I've got for you, Chief, is regarding vehicle-related thefts or crimes relating to vehicles. This is one that I can understand the complexities around it in terms of the car's been broken into or car's been stolen. There was an article in the Times, which I shared last week, about the national OCG links being seen with high-valued vehicles being stolen. And then within a couple of hours, they're literally out of the country. Which then makes it a lot more difficult. And then trackers are being removed as well from these vehicles by the criminals. But as a force, is there a minimum level of service that a resident who's had their car stolen should expect from the force? Or is it just a case of, well, it's an insurance job, here's a crime reference number? Is there anything more that you think could be done in this area?
So for sure, we've got a really important role here, and I'll be really clear. But I also think, before I come on to what we are doing, vehicle crime is one of the most preventable crimes. And I'm sure, there's an opportunity with this goes out to have a additional link that directs the public to it. But so particularly the traditional advice of stuff that's left in vehicles in terms of theft from motor vehicles, we're actually seeing reductions month on month anyway in theft from motor vehicles. So that continues to come down. We have seen a bit of a rise recently in crime trends for theft of motor vehicles. And again, there's lots that the public can do, and I'll come on to the policing bit in a moment. But a lot of keyless theft is preventable by the use of Faraday bags and things like that. Many insurance companies require people to have those, where you park, use of CCTV, all of those things. In terms of, I think your question was, is there a minimum response that you should expect? Well, firstly, we need to know, we need to record it. As you've indicated, many theft of motor vehicles, particularly when they're high value, is, that's being undertaken by organised crime groups. So to understand the patterns of behaviour so that we can put operations in place is really important. And there's two distinct answers here. There's the initial response the public get and feel and see, and there's what we are doing to target organised crime. And the two things may not be completely visible one of the other, because the organised crime operations, very much we see patterns merging, and we put specific operations in place to go after individual groups. Often we enforce and convict people and stop series, and in some cases then are able to work backwards and detect crime, but in other cases we might not have detected it, but we've stopped a series happening. So the reporting of this crime type is really important. And in terms of when you call us, if someone is there now stealing your car, I would expect that is treated as an immediate response, and we are responding because there's an opportunity to catch an offender and prevent crime or detect it. If it's not there in the morning and there's CCTV that we can recover and all of those things, then often we don't need to come and see you to do that, because we can get that digitally from you. And as part of that investigation, we may visit neighbours and do other CCTV collections, but actually make us aware of what evidence is there. There is no minimum, it's distinct to burglary. We always attend a burglary where someone's house is broken into. We don't always attend a theft or a theft from a motor vehicle unless there's a reason to gain evidence for that. But what we do is always map how we think that fits into any series and add it to our intelligence picture. And sometimes subsequently, when we realise the significance of that, we may be doing we will be doing other things such as ANPR cameras and other CCTV that we have access to, because vehicles, we can see what routes they take. So there's lots going on in the background there. So that isn't a clear art, but there is a big ask of, we need to know, and then please do everything you can to avoid it. Not leaving tools in vans is another really. So I know that's a pain for someone that owns a van and their job has the tools in it. But that really mitigates those kinds of crimes.
Yeah. So, I totally understand that. My concern here is that for some people, even if they don't have tools in their car, we have quite a sprawling county here, even though we have the urban areas. And for many people, their car is one of the key sources to their livelihood, to get to the train station, to get to work in London or any of our other cities. So when the vehicle is stolen, it is a big chunk of their lives that's been taken. And I'm just keen to understand what would necessitate an officer attending to get a statement, to look at forensics, or would they all have to be done remotely, even if statements have to be taken? Otherwise, obviously, if it's reported, what I hear as well sometimes, Chief, is, well, the police never even turned up. I'm yet to meet this. This is not a criticism of the officers. I'm just as much as anybody else aware of the pressures that the officers face. I generally am. I can understand why they cannot go to every single theft of the vehicle. But what I will say though is that, just something for you to think to look into. I'm yet to meet anyone whose vehicle was stolen that had the police attend yet. It might have happened, but I'm not aware of it. So of course, but I don't know about every crime, obviously.
Yeah. But we've got some great results, and we've recovered a number of people's tools. So there is a lot going on with this, but it's about where is the value of our effort, because when a vehicle's, we find it's recently been stolen, we're often flooding the area looking for that vehicle, and often have success with that. And I've seen vehicles return to the owner on the night in some instances. We've made arrests, those sorts of things. And I'm not going to go into operational detail on this call, but I can say right now there are 5 separate operations running which target different types of vehicle crime, which range from keyless theft through to tool theft, and so a full range of vehicle crime type activities, and they have significant resourcing that focuses on them.
So, Chief, would you say, before I move on to the next question, in your view, that the keyless theft, related vehicle theft, is probably the most significant number out of all these, in your view? If you don't have that information, that's fine. We can dig into another time.
You know, we have crime series, and they ebb and flow. And much of
Right.
that depends on how successful we are. So I wouldn't want to pin it into one, because in a few weeks' time it could be a different
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are still seeing that crime type, but and I echo, which in the main is quite, that there's significant steps we can do to avoid being a victim of that crime.
But I am mindful, very lastly, that there are still cases of people leaving their keys on the hook by the front door.
Yeah.
We're still having that in Bedfordshire, and that is not it is not the best thing to do, I would say. Okay, moving on. Thanks for that. How that has affected the diversity and makeup of the force. I think I read somewhere that Bedfordshire Police, in terms of Black, African, and Caribbean applicants, less than 1% were successful in becoming police officers, even though the force has improved its representation ratio from one of the worst in the country to now being in the top 3 or top 4 behind some of our major cities, which is a fantastic achievement. But for the African and Caribbean community, it has actually gone backwards. What is the unless the data is out of date? Are you aware of this, and what is the force doing about that?
Yeah. So our overall visible diversity is about 11.2% officially. I think it's a bit higher than that, because we have individuals that joined at a time where it was self-defined and preferred not to say. However, I would agree with you that the force needs to continue to focus on attracting members of our Black communities into policing. And that isn't just about attraction into a role. It's about the service that the community are provided. It's about their experience with policing, which is why in Bedfordshire we place considerable focus on improving policing for Black people, and that's the name we give to the police race action plan here, and why I have people in dedicated roles at a senior level working on that, because that is really key. Representation in this county is a really important thing given the diversity of the county. We haven't gone backwards as you suggested, but it's pretty stubborn. So we're only about 1.2% of our workforce are Black. So our overall visible diversity is much higher. But that being said, in the recent recruitment that we've been done, and I know that you are a witness to this because you often attend sort of passing out parades of officers. You've seen that there has been considerable diversity in that recruitment, and not just but visible, but cultural, language, and other difference in experience coming into the organisation in a good way. So but even though that the kind of recruitment is positive in terms of the kind of seeing increased visible diversity, as the organisation is large and that only forms a proportion of it, it takes quite a bit of time to see sizable shifts in the overall percentage of the workforce, which continues to grow. It's just we'd all like to see the percentage swings happening quicker, and I the first to say we need to do more to encourage people from our communities to join policing from all of our.
Where I think that the force must be commended is the recruitment of women to the force. I think we are probably above the national average, I think, from the latest data that I saw a couple of months ago, and that's a really, really positive sign of visible diversity being delivered by the force. And I've met many of our female officers who work for you, and they are contributing tremendously. I'm however very disappointed to learn, which you mentioned to me, of 2 female officers being assaulted recently. Can you just explain briefly, Chief, what your position is in terms of your officers being assaulted by members of the public, whether it's sexual assault in particular, which I think was the case here?
Yeah. So before I answer that last point, I think I'm glad you raised the issue of female representation. It's never been higher in the force. It's pretty much close to 50-50, which
Yes.
accords with the population.
Yes.
And the point I would add to that is that's not just as an overall workforce, that's at senior ranks throughout the entire organisation.
Yes.
And so, that is a real positive story. In terms of, that last point you made, yeah, sadly, that does happen from time to time, and it's about how we respond when it does. And my view is, if one of our officers has been a victim of a serious crime of that nature, first and foremost, they are treated like a victim, not like a police officer, and get all the support that a victim of a serious crime like that should have. And the offence is treated really seriously, in which you've alluded to being aware of one that's happened in the last few days. Now, I can also reassure you that the individual responsible has been charged and remanded to court.
Good. And you know what? If I had my way, which I don't, I believe there should be a mandatory minimum custodial sentence for these people. I don't think that police officers should be treated as well, that's what you signed up for kind of thing. No one should be subjected to that kind of assault of any type in doing their work. So I really do hope that the CPS will, stick the charge on these people, and the courts will it will respond accordingly. So in terms, just before I move on to the next question, again about diversity now. So we've got someone now who's leading the race action plan for the force. Will that be part of their remit to look into this and what can be done to improve the visible diversity of the force and representation?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, my view is I lead that response. It's not something to be delegated, but I do have, as you say, a senior person full time, focused on all aspects. So that isn't about visible representation. It's also about scrutiny, tackling, identifying, tackling any disproportionality in the system, and generally, engagement and building confidence. But all of those things contribute to changing perceptions of this force being an employer of choice for all communities. And we need to keep working with our Black community, and for anyone listening to this is a force you will be really welcomed into, because only by being representative can we further build the confidence that we need to.
And just to be clear, Chief, for anyone who's listening, this by no means is a suggestion at all that standards or the rules are going to be changed or lowered for anyone because of the color of their skin or their gender. I don't believe you've ever done that, and I wouldn't support that anyway. But we've never, ever, ever looked at changing the rules or lowering standards for anyone to be able to come in just to meet a target. That's not going to happen, and that will never happen. Just wanted to put that out there. If you want to say something about that, that's fine, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, no, well, you've said it really. It's there are good people who we welcome into our force from all of our communities, and the only real, there are some qualifications that are needed, but in the main, we take people in, with their basic qualifications. What we're looking for is people with good values.
Yes,
those are the people we welcome into Bedfordshire Police.
Good. Now the next question. Can I have an update on Belleville, please, for the 3 local authorities in Bedfordshire?
Yeah. Just for clarity, that's an operational name for our response to shoplifting in the county and that kind of offending. So I suspected you would ask me about this, Commissioner, so I've had something prepared, but I probably had more information provided than was necessary, to be fair. So I'm gonna filter. If I look at it from the 3 separate areas, to give a better feel for So, Bedford
Yep.
has been, you've seen, we've had lots of feedback from the community, shopkeepers, local
Yes.
authority about how well this is going. 49 arrests over there in total, and we've resolved 126 kind of crimes as a result of that, and we've had 63 charges, so not all the 49 arrests have been for that, because when you put resources in a place, they
They
find
pick up other things
crime.
as well.
But
Yes.
at least 18 of those have been specific. And I'm pleased to say, in terms of preventing these things, we currently have 8 behaviour orders, so CBO applications ongoing. We've had 1 approved. So this is, putting an order on someone that's making them comply with, criminal behaviour order. And if they don't, then they can, face a consequence and ultimately be locked up for that. Similarly, we've got a kind of community protection notice warning issued, so there's lots of engagements and problem solving that are going on in Bedford. In terms of central area, we've arrested 3 prolific offenders in Leighton Buzzard and Dunstable. 2 of those are pending CBOs, so those are the orders I just mentioned. And we've had 19 specific engagements in February with particular shops in central area where we think are, for us, high priority locations to work with those individual shops. And we've had a number of shop watch meetings, 1 for Leighton Buzzard for sure, and 1 for Dunstable. We've had various patrols and have included councillors in some of those. And this isn't just neighbourhood cops. We've had some plainclothes officers involved in this as well. So don't expect that it won't be a plainclothes officer that catches some of these offenders. And then in Luton, again, in relation to the top 10 offenders that we identified as a result of the work over there, 3 are currently in prison as a result of this work, all subjected to orders. 3 are currently on bail as a result of our activity. Again, requests for orders on them. 1's currently on police bail, and we're looking to put a CBO on as well. And we've got others whose behaviour we can already see, because we're starting to monitor them, has already changed. All the top 10 locations visited all have a dedicated point of contact. So, I've glossed over a few bits there, conscious of time, Commissioner, but you can see there's a real effort there to respond to what, understandably has been you'd expect the policing to respond to some of the increases that we're seeing in this type of offending, both here and there.
So are we getting in? I mean, that's absolutely astonishing, given the fact that it just started, I think, in January. So that's some really, really good figures there. Are we getting feedback from the retailers about any impacts that these operations and the rest are having in terms of frequency of shoplifting? I mean, of course, this is not going to get everything to zero.
No.
But it'll be good to see if there's some positive impacts being had, or if we're seeing some of these shoplifters just moving from one area to another area.
No, I think, from what I've said, you can see we're putting orders on people. We're seeking to, not just make an arrest and then it's back to it the next day. It's to change behaviour, it's to target harden, and it's to focus our resources on those causing the most harm. We have had some feedback. I got a personal bit of feedback from, someone I know very well who was with a shopkeeper in Bedford recently, who said it feels really different and took the time to sort of let me know personally, which I'm grateful for. And I'm sure that isn't isolated. It certainly feels better, and I'm glad that this is an opportunity to promote some of the stuff that's ongoing.
And what I would just mention, and thanks for that update, Chief. Something I'll just ask you to maybe have a look into. I was made aware of an incident in Leighton Buzzard about 2 or 3 days ago, where a shoplifter went into a Peacock store. I think a young female member of staff was assaulted, and they called the police, and apparently no one turned up, and a member of the public had to intervene. I don't have the full details, and of course, there's only one side of this that I get to hear. in light of the really good work being done, and obviously the good report that you've given about Leighton Buzzard and Dunstable as well, it would just be good to know what happened in this instance, and if there's any going to be, if there will be any attendance later on to look at CCTV, and if there's someone that's already known to the
Yeah,
community team. Yeah, but
we
this was an incident in around Peacock store in Leighton Buzzard, from what I was told.
okay. Well, I'll definitely get peacocks visited. That's a really reasonable request. This is a bit of an aside, but I just wanted to throw this in case there's not an opportunity while we're talking about that area of the county. So Friday night there was a robbery at a jewellery store, and in Dunstable, and I just wanted to, that probably quite visible because of the way it was done to that store, and I just want to make it really, update the public that the people involved in that were arrested a short time later, so I guess what I want to emphasize is, serious crime happens, resources were there, and was responded to in a really, really effective policing response to that. And it's important. People don't always see the outcome of those kinds of things, but they see, the blatant evidence of the crime after it's taken place because of smashed windows and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Next question. So overall, crime in Bedfordshire has gone down. And a recent press report, you'll be pleased to hear this, Chief, found Bedfordshire to have among the lowest crime rate in England and Wales. Do you think this reduction over time that we've seen in Bedfordshire in crime overall is because people have given up reporting crime, or there are other reasons for this reduction in crime?
Well, I know what I think. I public of.
What do you think then?
They've been contacting us more than they ever have. We've made ourselves more contactable. We've made it easier to report a crime. You can report a crime online now with a simple process. And we take crime recording and doing that correctly really seriously, as you know. I'm pleased that there was an article, and I know that the article's correct, and they picked the certain dates and times, and someone else might pick a different date and time in a crime type and try and provide a counter narrative. But I can see that crimes in general have gone down. I've got the last 4 quarters of crime figures in front of me and can see that 3 of those 4 quarters there was significant reductions and 1 was a slight increase. So what would I say? I would say, going back to an earlier question we had, we've got more deployable resources because we're upskilling our people and they're becoming effective. We're responding quicker, we're answering the phone quicker, we're going to less stuff we shouldn't, and therefore we should be getting better at either preventing or detecting crime. Our neighbourhood policing teams are going to be fully up to strength by the end of this month in a way that they never have been before, and they're doing the sort of the additional problem solving work to try and reduce crime. So you start pulling all that together. I'd like to think that's a sign of a plan coming together rather than good fortune. And I can see that the solved rate, this month is, an improvement in terms of, how we've gone, quarter on quarter. And I'm hopeful that as we go into the new year, based on what I've just said, we'll start seeing, as the clock's reset for us, as performance terms on the 1st of April, and that we start to, hopefully have one of our best years yet in terms of the direction we're going in.
So here's how solving one problem, Chief, creates another problem. And I'm going to tell you now, we have this conversation all the time. So 2 years ago, I was out on foot patrols with one of the community officers in Biggleswade that covers Sandy and Potton as well.
Yeah.
And he bemoaned the fact that they were very short-staffed. They had lots of vacancies. He didn't have enough people to cover a big area. So I was in Potton last week at the celebration of at the community, and this same officer was there. And I said, well, so what's the latest now? And he said, well, look, we are now pretty much at full capacity, but we've got a problem. I said, what is that? He said, our meeting room is now not big enough to take all of the entire team. So I think they've got about 6 or 7 PCs and PCSOs now in their team. and they don't have enough meeting rooms to take the whole team. Another community sergeant said, well, they've now got so many enough people in their team that they need more access to police cars or 4x4. So thanks for that, Chief. How are you going to solve that new that new problem?
Well, I guess we're currently doing Clear Whole Build in Biggleswade, which is a specific neighbourhood policing led operation with partners. So hopefully they shouldn't need the meeting room too much because it should be out on the street. But
Yes.
you know,
And it was just a jokey way of him saying, look, things are now so much better that they've got extra capacity now, and they're able to cover a lot more. They're now able to go to the town and parish council meetings. They're able to meet with councillors, engage with the MPs. So it was an all-around good news. But no, that was really a roundabout way of saying well done.
no, I took it that way, and yeah, it was tongue in cheek. But the we have got a tired old building over there on a serious note, and that our intention is to improve
Yes.
our estate footprint
Yes.
in that area, which was still a work in progress. So, but in the meantime, I'm sure they're finding a way to overcome that problem of having more people, which is
Yes. No, that's great. Obviously, it would be just good to see how the whole thing looks and feels as of the 31st of March when the full complements are in place. And then even more when we have the extra 10 in place by December as well. So I think it will be really, really good development. So I just want to just touch base very quickly. You mentioned about how community teams you feel has also helped in reducing some of the crime that we're seeing. Um, I take it that you would. What about retention? Do you think the retention of officers improving has also helped?
Oh, I mean, retention's key to our success, which is why in previous conversations, we've been talking about creating student hubs and having to take frontline resources to do that, because it's a complete own goal and inefficiency if you bring someone in, spend a load of money on training them, and then they
Yeah.
leave and start again. That doesn't provide the public a good service. So the fact that we are, losing less people through attrition is a really good thing, and it's an area that continues to be a focus for me in terms of driving that attrition rate down, because that is absolutely integral to the
Yeah.
success of the force.
And I say, and obviously you've been in the business in the organization for longer than I have been in here for now just under 3 years. I remember the mood, the atmosphere, the feel within all of our buildings when I walked into them 3 years ago. People were tired, people were overworked. I mean, they're still tired and they feel overworked now, but it is nowhere near like what it was 3 years ago now. People feel a bit more supported. They're a bit more empowered to do things. There's a lot of investment going into supporting the senior and media and the frontline leadership team as well. It's just a complete feel. I'm not sure if you get the same sense as well from your engagement with your officers on the front line.
Yeah, so I think that's fair. And if you ask anyone, is it a bit harder, or does it feel a bit better than it did a while ago? It's an improving position, albeit in some areas people are still under more pressure than I
Yeah.
would like to be. And so if we'd have been talking this time last year, the control room would still feel like that.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like that anymore.
Yeah.
And there's other places where it doesn't feel like that anymore, but there are still some that do. But the fact is that when you get less and less of those, you can able to focus your effort on those areas to try and make it easier for the good people in there who are doing their very best for the public, so they're not under unreasonable pressures in terms of resources.
Okay. Uh, you talked about some of the areas that are under a lot of pressure at the moment, and the next question is going to be, it's more of an educational piece for the public because invariably everybody wants to see visible bobbies on the beat, police officers. They want to see the police, walking around their communities, driving through their villages, and so on and so forth. And we've invested a significant amount of resources into that area of the organization, being community policing. You are tasking them with doing more problem solving in their communities, and getting hands in the pockets and stopping searches, and getting dangerous weapons off the streets, dealing with shoplifting now as part of Belleville. Would you mind sharing with the public, Chief, the areas of operational risk, which the force has at the moment that's flashing red. And do you think that the 24/24 budget goes some way in tackling that?
Yeah, so I think there's three things there. You spoke about what people want and very much focused on that visible, officer in the street. I think, and I'm a member of, I'm not just the chief, I'm a resident of Bedfordshire, that people, if your child is robbed of their phone in the street, you want the police to respond and for them to be reassured and that someone to be caught. If your house is broken into, you want someone to come. But equally, if you're a victim of fraud, or if your child's kind of, groomed in their bedroom or online, you want Bedfordshire Police to have the capabilities to respond to these things. So, that's why we have a lot of stuff which is visible, but some that is more specialised and might be less visible. But when you need it, you want it, and you need it to be of a good standard. So, I guess going back to your question of where was, where are the areas that are glowing as ones that need, in many cases it's more resource and then other but of the resource with the right skills. So in some of our areas of investigation, we need to have more people who have the requisite skills. It's not just about bums on seats, it's about people who have the right level of skills. And in some areas in investigation, we're running lighter than I would like us to be, but that's the pure fact of that is why we spoke earlier about more people upskilling. The more specialized the resource, the longer the sort of the conveyor belt from being a new recruit through to someone that then eventually moves into investigations or occupies a frontline uniform role that enables another person to leave that team and move into investigations. Those areas, some of those areas are, and this shouldn't be a public concern because it's an area of focus, and the service is definitely improving, but the people in there, that there isn't enough of them with the right skills right now, and therefore they're having to work really hard. And I want to address that to help them. You also touched on funding. We've worked really hard to make the case for every single budget line we possibly can. And Commissioner, you've been a real avid supporter of that. So thank you for that. And actually, our deal this year now, because of the funding lines we've had, is, I feel is enabling us to continue the journey that we're describing, albeit some of it is year on year kind of funding lines that I'd like to be baked in due course into core police funding. But that's a separate issue. But do we have sufficient, resources to continue this journey that we're describing? Yes, we do.
Okay. So are you seeing any growing issues around the online grooming of children, all the kind of crimes that ordinarily the member of the public would never see? And are you seeing a constant need to try and balance giving the public what they want to see and dealing with those high harm, high risk issues which the public would never see?
Yeah. So the number of people in not just the county but the country with an unhealthy sexual attraction to children that manifests itself in a number of different forms of offending, from indecent images to online grooming to contact offending, is a worrying number. And there are statistical, national assessments of what that number is. I'm not going to go into it here. But such is the case that we need specialist capabilities to be able to counter that threat. And we will always, both at a force and a regional level, be investing in those kind of resources to respond to that threat, because there's a significant proportion of our population who are arguably vulnerable because of their age, and they deserve to receive the appropriate protection from the police.
And of course, their access to the internet as well. So, I mean,
all I would say on that is there's also a massive responsibility on tech companies to just stop this, to make it impossible for their platforms to be used in that way. And, anything you're able to do with lobbying that, Commissioner, is welcome, and I'll continue to do the same.
I mean, there's the online harms bill, which is, making its way through Parliament, and I have been extremely disappointed as to the response from some of the online social media companies, and the level of encryption that they are now bringing in. That makes it even more difficult for officers to deal with the online harms that vulnerable people face. Uh, but also, I will continue to do whatever I can to communicate with our residents that while we all want to see more visible policing, I think the scale of this very, very harmful attraction to young children by adults, or by it's very, very alarming. I know that I did see an NCA report recently about the massive growth in this, and how the UK is becoming one of the major drivers in Europe of online abuse of children, or at least consumers anyway, of this. And sadly, we do have a disturbing number of those individuals in Bedfordshire, some of whom are being managed by the IOM, the offender management team. So yeah, thank you very much for highlighting that, Chief. And the last question that I've got for you is more of a introspective one. You've now been in post as Chief Constable 12 months since January. Not like I'm counting, of course. And obviously, you were acting before that, and you were DEP before that. Um, what are your reflections on the role in as a substantial chief? What have you enjoyed the most about the role, and what have you learned about the role?
So first and foremost, it's a fantastic job, a real privilege to, work with, our partners, our communities, but massively privileged to lead the fabulous people we have in Bedfordshire Police. And I guess, no week is quite as you plan it in this job. Um, and that kind of comes with the territory, and you have to respond to that accordingly. But I think the key for me in terms of the learning is, if you've got some key things that you need to be the focus and not be derailed from focusing on those things, to kind of overall drive the kind of the ambition of improvement that we have in terms of constantly wanting to provide our public the best service we possibly can. I think you just need to make sure that you remain focused on those things and aren't necessarily derailed from that. And I think those reflections, we've covered that largely in this meeting. It's focus on the culture of the people in the organisation, focus on the productivity of the system beyond, not just within policing but beyond policing at a county level and nationally. Focus on innovation to keep making marginal gains, which we're doing here. And then you got those three things in place, then actually as leaders in this organisation, what we're now doing is using those building blocks to really focus on performance. And by that I mean improving the service we provide to the public. And that's where we're focused now, and we're going to continue to be focused for the coming year. So that would sort of summarize my answer to that question, Commissioner.
And then I can only just thank you, for working with me in setting this foundation that we now have in place with the numbers of the officers, but also the work you've done in improving the retention. I think that is going to be a much bigger deal for the force and for our county than many people realize, in terms of actually attracting officers to come and join Bedfordshire Police, even transferring from other police forces, and also keeping the more experienced people, and the impact that's going to have on solve rates, the impact that's going to have on cutting crime, the impact that's going to have on the welfare of police officers. I think it's going to be fantastic. So very well done. I think it's been a very successful first year for you, and I think on behalf of the people of Bedfordshire, I can thank you for your leadership and the work you're doing as well. And we look forward to more of it for many years to come. So we will end there. And thank you very much for everything that you've done, and to all the officers as well. I joined the Chief Constable in calling you all fabulous as well, and the staff. I don't want to forget the police staff.
Yeah.
All right. And oh yeah, and the volunteers as well, and the volunteers, and everyone that's involved and supportive of the Bedfordshire Police. Thank you all for everything that you're doing. And until the next time, see you
Thanks,
later.
Commissioner. Bye.
Bye bye.